that number more than 100,000. So as an employer, I would often get job applications where Y4IT is listed as one of the congresses and events attended by the applicant. It's heartwarming to know, to feel that we started this many years ago. Yes, 19 years ago. When we were still young and yes, part of the youth. You are now another generation of Y4IT attendees. You, the millennials, the technology natives, were born with smartphones, gadgets, and the internet. Technology has changed so much since the first Y4IT. You are faced with a new environment. You will see in your lifetime millions of jobs replaced by automation, like self-driving cars, automated call center agents, and many more. But at the same time, new jobs have been created. Jobs that didn't exist 19 years ago. Jobs like, or were little known then, like jobs like data scientist, information security analyst, data privacy officer, virtual reality content developer, drone operators. These are full-time jobs, okay? Data visualization specialist, online tutor, online content evaluation specialist, data warehouse specialist, MOOCs course developers, that's massive online open courseware, swarm robot programmers, and other jobs. So many other jobs. And yet, many of the old jobs will remain. Study shows that many of the jobs cannot really be replaced by machines. Jobs like systems analysts, software architects, teachers, doctors, nurses, physical therapists, even computer programmers will not be replaced by machines. A challenge for us all is to keep ourselves updated with the changing times, changing technologies, continue learning, continue making yourself relevant. Always learn new skills, new IT skills, new competencies, new technologies. Analysis and problem solving skills are so important. Systems design skills are important. Project management skills are much in demand. So I challenge you, everyone, to ensure that you are prepared for a future that no one can predict yet. Welcome to Y4IT, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and until tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Jaime Caro. All right, so now we will have a short message for everyone sent by Senator Sonny Angara.
Hello po. Greetings to our friends at the UP IT System Foundation led by former USEC Monchito Ibrahim. And the participants, I'd like to greet all the participants of the Youth Congress. And I think I'm preaching to the choir. Hindi ko na masyadong kailangan i-build up yung importansya po ng IT and being competitive in the IT, BPO, ICT field. Dahil kayong lahat, mga kabataan, ay mga digital natives. You probably grew up on your devices and spend a great deal of time on your devices in the digital world. So alam nyo na po ito, but nonetheless, since I was asked to give a few remarks, allow me to mention. First of all, I'd like to mention the crucial role of Yusek Ibrahim. And we collaborated when he was still at the DICT as a Yusek. And even before that, when it wasn't, DICT was not yet created, and there was only the I think ICTO office, if I'm not mistaken, no. And importanteng personalidad si Yusek Monchito sa pagpapalawak ng ating IT BPO world, attracting investors, keeping them here, making sure their concerns are addressed. And I pay tribute to him for that. And I was one of the authors of the law creating the DICT. And I was also the budget sponsor for, I think, 2 or 3 years of the DICT, about 4 or 5 years ago. So, and I was a supporter, big supporter of, the biggest supporter probably in the legislature of his rural impact sourcing program. Ito pong rural impact sourcing, ito po'y naglalagay po tayo ng infrastruktura, digital infrastructure sa malalayong lugar sa provinces, and we have makeshift call centers. Kala mo warehouse lang pala. It's like a call center or a knowledge processing center na merong mga college graduates like in places like Lanao Norte, and we source our workforce from the graduates of Iligan, Marawi State University in Iligan, na may mahuhusay na mga graduates in the digital sphere. So, you know, yung World Bank, sabi nila of the 10, I think it's the World Bank or the World Economic Forum who said of the 10 future economic growth areas, 4 doon are squarely in the digital field, no? You have artificial intelligence, data analytics, software and solutions-based engineering, cloud computing, among others, no? So these are potential careers for the young na pwedeng pasukan, and kami naman po sa gobyerno kailangan namin suportahan ito. That's why we've been pushing for certain pieces of legislation other than budget support. We have the Digital Transformation Bill, the Digital Competitiveness and Digital Skills Bills, and the Digital Payments Bill na to create the environment in government and to mandate yung ating mga ahensya, lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno suportahan po yung pagkaroon ng kabataan ng mga digital skills. So in agencies like TESDA and CHED, magbigay ng scholarships, DTI to give incentives, and of course the ICT to develop the digital infrastructure. So good luck po sa inyo lahat. I'm happy you're attending this youth forum. I'm happy Yusek Ibrahim is at the helm of projects like this, and of course you have our full support. Please let us know what else we can do to improve the position of the country and give everyone, our youth, a brighter future in digital careers and futures. Salamat po, mabuhay kayong lahat.
Thank you, Senator Angara. Now, our next speakers are actually father and son. Mr. Joey Gorango is currently chairman of the CAPI's ICT Council. He is now serving as a director and coach for Servio Technologies, Surpass, AID, Office Guru, Code Scholarship Fund, and the Mijares Gorango Cranlo Facial Foundation. Joining him is his son, JC, who is a full-stack developer and the author of Denim, a low-code development tool for creating enterprise-grade business applications.
Good morning. Welcome to everybody. Greetings from a social distance. My name is Joey Gorango, as they introduced me. And I'm here to get this session started about what it's like to be a developer or a programmer. Okay, and just to get things started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I mean, I'm older than probably all of you, but when I started my career in IT, I started out as a programmer. And I'm self-taught. I don't have a college degree, but I did teach myself how to program. And I said I was a professional developer for probably the first 20 years of my career before I shifted from doing that to running my own company full time. And I haven't actually programmed in about 15 years, which is why for this session, when they invited me to do this, I suggested that rather than listening to me talk about how to be what it's like to be a programmer, I would bring along somebody who is still a programmer or a professional developer, and that is my son, my youngest son. And he'll introduce himself later on, but his name is JC. So he'll be doing most of the narrating in this session. The way we structured this now is that I'll be doing a bit of an introduction like I'm doing now. He'll be doing a bit of an introduction, and I've prepared 6 questions to ask him along the way. It's only 20 minutes, so we can't spend too much time on any of the questions. But the good thing is JC will be joining the panel later on. I think at 11 o'clock today, he'll be joining the panel discussion. And if you have any questions for him, you can certainly ask them. Okay, so that's it. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the main speaker, the real narrator for this session, which is my son, professional developer, JC Garango. Come on, come on, come on. There you go. There's
Hello.
JC. So
Hi.
tell them a little bit about yourself, JC.
Hi, I'm JC. I've been working as a software developer for the last 9 years. I grew up here in the Philippines, and when I was 15, I graduated high school, and my dad basically gave me a choice. He said, "Do you want to start working or do you want to go to college?" And he knew I was into computers. Growing up, I'd always mess with my IT teacher in school and screw up the computers one way or another. So I guess he just wanted to test me. I took an internship, and to everyone's surprise, I passed just fine, and I got regularized at that company. I worked in that job for a few years before I decided I should try and branch out and freelance on my own and on the side just to make a little extra money. And that side gig ended up making me more money than my job. So I decided to just freelance, just do that, for money. And that's where I'm at now. So now I write software independently and I work like directly with clients.
Okay, thanks, JC. I'm glad that you're able to introduce yourself to our audience today. So as I said, I prepared 6 questions, which are probably the most commonly asked questions for people who are looking to get into IT, to get into programming. So let me start with the first question and then I'll go from there. Okay, so first question, what's your typical work day like as a professional developer?
Well, a typical day for me probably has me waking up at like 12. I could wake up later or earlier like today if I wanted to, but I feel like I'm not really a morning person, and if I wake up afternoon, I don't feel so good. Anyway, I'd get up and then I would just kind of chill for a bit, try to defrost. Um, I'll drink some coffee. Like every night, I make some cold brew coffee to drink when I wake up, and I don't know, maybe play with my cats. And after a little bit of reading or watching videos, I'll do some programming for 3 or 4 hours, something like that. And then after that, I might take a break. I mean, usually my workday also consists of other things. Like I do have to sometimes meet with people or like talk to clients, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll work for 3 or 4 hours. I'll take a little break to maybe play some video games or like work on some of my hobbies or play with my cats. And then after an hour or so, I'll go back to work for a few more hours, and then I'll call it a day and spend the rest of the evening playing with my friends or hanging out with my fiance. Of course, sometimes I do end up taking a really long break, and I have to like spend the rest of the evening working to get something done. But it's really up to me how I want to manage my time, as long as I'm around to chat and people aren't upset if things aren't getting done.
So it seems like you have a fairly varied workday, which usually starts at a little afternoon, and you could probably go quite late in the evening, and sometimes maybe early in the morning, which is, I think, typical of
Yeah.
a lot of programmers. They
Yeah.
do their best work at night. But it seems like you have a very varied day, although the biggest chunk of time is spent doing programming. And so that's what I want to go with the next question on this thing called programming. So what exactly is programming work? I mean, when you say I do some programming, what is that exactly?
Well, so a lot of the people here, probably think that programming is coding, like actually writing code, which, yeah, I mean, you do code, you do have to code to program, of course. But that's a lot like saying playing guitar is just playing the right notes in the right order, or saying that speaking is saying the right words in the right order. You know, it's a lot more than that. What programming is to me is codifying the real world, which is like messy and unpredictable, into a system that's easy to understand for people and easy to interact with. The best software in the world is totally transparent. Like, you shouldn't even know that it's there, that there's some piece of technology doing something for you. So the best software developers in the world have to have this really deep understanding of the needs of the people that they're writing the software for. And they also need to have the problem solving skills to solve those problems using, well, software systems. And so it's really just like solving word problems all day, except they're like actually real scenarios, if that makes sense.
So it's about problem solving more than anything else, it seems.
Yeah.
Do you see? And when you talk about problem solving, does that mean that you have to be a whiz at mathematics?
Not necessarily. You can also just be kind of good at thinking through problems in general, just like talking through them, and you yourself could still be a programmer. It's not all about math. There's some algebra to it.
It's more
but
about logic, problem
Yeah.
solving logic than math, right? Because some people think that you have to be a whiz at calculus or something like that to be a good programmer. And it sounds
No.
like, no, you don't have to be.
You do for some industries. If you're mapping statistics or something, definitely you'd want to have some kind of background in mathematics. But like a lot of the systems that I write are like HR, or like trying to sell services, e-commerce. So like I don't, you generally don't need to know a lot of math for that.
Okay. Let's move on to our third question. The third question is, so anybody here who is looking to get into IT, they want to get into the IT industry. Does that mean that if you want to get into IT, you have to be a programmer? Does someone have to be a programmer to get into the IT industry?
Well, I would say no matter what industry you're in, I think you can really benefit from at least learning to code. Like, I think code is becoming a very fundamental skill, and especially since we're starting to rely more and more on computers to do stuff for us, it'd be good to know what that's doing. Also, like, learning to solve problems in a linear fashion, like you would with writing software, is very useful in a multitude of industries. Like, I think anytime somebody uses the term resourceful to mean something like the person is very intuitive with using the stuff that he has to make things work, I feel like that term resourceful says that somebody thinks like a programmer, even though they're not necessarily a programmer. But other than programmers, I mean, there's a lot going on in IT, and there's many jobs that you can do that doesn't actually involve developing the software. For example, QA testing is necessary and important and often overlooked. Like, I, as a software developer, can write some very fancy automated tests and make sure every little corner of the system has like a test that covers it. but nothing can really compare to a human being using your system and getting incredibly frustrated at some of the decisions you've made. Like, you can write a test to make sure that a button does what you think it should do, but you can't write a test to make sure that you think it should do the right thing. Like, some decisions you have to make, and sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And other than QA, there's also people who manage the IT infrastructure. A lot of companies are moving to the cloud now, with AWS and Google and Azure. But somebody is still back there at Amazon or Google, making sure everything is working, making sure all the hardware is connected. I read that Google has a hard drive failure every hour or so. Somebody has to replace those and cost it and manage the logistics of that and give everybody laptops. There's also many situations where cloud isn't practical, like at a bank or at any kind of government system. So for those scenarios, you need somebody who knows how to put stuff together and make things work. And even if your company uses AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, somebody still has to manage all of that infrastructure. It's not like you just say, here's my software, make it work. It's a job as well, and that's called DevOps. So there's a lot of stuff in IT other than programming, and even other than those, like somebody just has to like talk to clients. Somebody needs to be speaking to them, and you get paid a lot more if you can do that.
So it sounds like, JC, that the answer is no, you don't have to be a programmer to get into IT, that there are many other job roles and other career opportunities within the IT industry that does not require you to do programming work, that you don't have to be a programmer. But what I caught at the beginning of what you said, though, is that it does help, not just in IT, but in any profession, to be a good problem solver, which is essentially what a programmer does. So I guess another way to put it is that you don't have to be a programmer to get into IT, but if you want to get into IT and excel at it, having a programmer's mindset would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in other industries, just being that guy who solves problems is very useful.
Okay, let's move on to our next question. And you've been doing this now, like you said, for 9 years. I've been in the IT industry for over 35 years. But it would be interesting to know, since you've been in it just the last 9 years, when I'm no longer the programmer, but I do other stuff now. In the last 9 years and the time that you've been a professional programmer, what would you say have been the major challenges, difficulties that you've had to face that you think people should know about before they get into this line of work?
I think the most challenging part is just trying to connect or square what people expect and the reality of software. Because software breaks, and you can make it so that a software breakdown doesn't like destroy things. You can isolate systems to make sure that this thing doesn't break that thing. But you really can't stop software from breaking sometimes. I mean, we just saw like a few days ago, I think that was last week, that Facebook went down. They're the biggest company, one of the biggest companies in the world, and they hire some of the most intelligent people in the world, and yet sometimes their software just breaks down. And even the software they use at NASA for the Apollo missions, they broke sometimes. And I think the reason is that software and IT in general is a very young industry. It's not like being a doctor or a carpenter where the tools of the trade are standardized and there's standard procedures. Like there's only really one way to do a tracheotomy. IT and computers have only been around for like 60 years, if you're gonna be generous about it. And the biggest software companies today, like Microsoft and Apple, they only came about in the 80s. That's only 40 years ago. That's within a lot of people's lifetimes. And many people remember a day when there was no Apple or Google. And even if you're not that old, you probably remember when Google wasn't that big. Although now that I think about it, probably a lot of you don't remember a
Yeah,
time
yeah.
Google wasn't
I
that
think
big.
you're talking about people like me who remember a
Yeah,
time when there was no Google, there was no Apple, there was
yeah,
no Microsoft, there was no Amazon. I think most of the people in our audience, JC, don't remember that time because
I know.
they would
I
have
know.
not yet been born.
Yeah, but other than being a young industry, it's moving faster than any other industry, and it kind of has to because there's always new needs for software. There's always like new scenarios where you need to use software. It's like if you think about something like automation, right? You're constantly making new automations for new processes, and so the tools have to keep evolving. But at a point, it does start to feel like I was a carpenter, and every year they're coming out with a new hammer that for some reason doesn't work with the old nails. But you just have to adapt and try to keep up.
I think a good analogy for the not just the newness, but the rate at which the demand for software is accelerating is kind of when the internal combustion engine, which we use in all transportation, was developed. I mean, that was in the early 1900s, and as soon as they kind of got that going, it became quite apparent that everybody wanted one. The demand was just so great that they couldn't make them fast enough. They couldn't get them out fast enough. So today, the same thing is happening with software. It's a fairly new industry. It's a fairly new, I guess you could say, production type industry. But the demand is so great that we can't make software fast enough because there aren't enough programmers to make software fast enough so that they can meet the demands of the market. So it's a demand thing, right? And since we're talking about demand, the fact that there's a lot of demand and supply, the truth is, and I think you know this, not just in the Philippines, but globally, there is a shortage of experienced programmers, of good programmers. So when you have a supply and demand problem like that, obviously that affects prices, right? Just like in any economics problem. So I guess the next question, which I'm sure a lot of people are interested in, given that the demand is so great and the supply is so small, that should tend to drive prices up. Well, what can they, if they become a professional programmer, what can they expect to earn as a professional programmer? What do you say to them?
I don't know a lot about the corporate world. I haven't spent a lot of time there. But I will say when I was working for a company, I was making between 20 and 40,000 a month. But if you're going to talk about like freelancing, like what I do now, I don't think anybody will hire you as a freelancer until you have some work to show. You know, you got to remember that the people who are hiring freelancers, they're usually not like big companies. They're usually um, either individuals or companies of a few people that want somebody who will just get the thing done already. And you have to know how to get the thing done. So you have to prove that you can do the job. So generally speaking, fresh out of high school or college, you just have to get a regular job. And that doesn't need to be a programming job. I have friends who didn't work as programmers and just did something else while they learned and tried to build a portfolio. Like I know one guy who did like the subtitles for TV and movies, which is kind of boring, but it didn't drain him and it gave him enough free time to learn how to program. And I know another guy who worked in a call center, and he was like learning when he wasn't taking calls. And he worked on some projects, on the weekends. You just need some people who need software. So the bottom line is you need something, just anything to show to potential clients and say, hey, here's some work I've done. Maybe you want me to make something for you. And, because of the demand problem, as you said, people aren't that picky unless they have a lot of money. So
It
it
seems to
does.
me like you're answering the question by basically saying, uh, in the early days of entering this profession, whether you do work as a employee or as a freelancer, if that's even possible, don't expect this to be a high-paying job, because
Yeah.
what you're trying to get at that beginning is experience. And actually, even if your first job wasn't programming, what you should be doing is you need to pay the bills first of
Yeah.
all, and support yourself. But you can actually spend time away from your regular job, gaining the experience, gaining the skills, gaining the knowledge, so that in 4 or 5 years time, maybe you will be capable enough to get a good paying programming job, whether that's in a corporate environment or in a freelancer. But so let's kind of jump, let's go fast forward. You said, and I know this for a fact, entry level programmers, you're looking at maybe 15 to 20,000 pesos a month is a typical salary, or depending on where you are and what company it is. But that's a
Yeah,
typical
I made
entry
less than
level.
that as an intern. So
Yeah, when you were an intern, I know you made less of that when you're an intern, but
yeah.
that's because that was an intern, right? But that's entry level. But let's give people an idea what happens later on. Like in your case, you've been doing this for 9 years now.
Okay.
At about the 5 or 6 year mark in your career, when you were already working as a freelancer, what can people expect to be earning at that point? 5 to 6 years of experience.
Okay. So what well when I left the company and started freelancing to start with, I was making like 30,000 for a part-time position. So if I did it full time, I imagine I would have made like 60,000. I had like 4 years of experience. Um, uh, and that's probably just because I was working with foreign clients. I'm not sure how much people here in the Philippines would pay, but that there's a lot of foreign clients. So I don't think you should be afraid like you're not going to get work. After you have even more experience than that, though, especially once you start working with some clients and they start giving you feedback that you can show to other people, you can easily be making 50 to 100,000 a month. And some people are concerned about freelancing because it might be seasonal and there's not always work to do. And yeah, there's downtime, but I don't think I've ever been out of work for more than a few weeks, except for vacations. And if you're good at it, the amount you get paid makes up for the downtime. You just get more free time.
So it sounds like that if you're good at it and you experience 4, 5, maybe 6 years of experience, and you're good at it, and you're able to, I guess, talk to people in a relatively good manner, that making over 50,000, 100,000 in income a month is not unusual. Would that be
Yeah.
correct to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So that gives our audience an idea. If you do this for 5 or 6 years and you're pretty good at it, then there's no reason why you can't be making 6 figures in your monthly income for this. Okay. So we gotta wrap this up real quick now because we're getting close to the end of our session. So let me ask the last question of you before we end, which is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be a professional programmer? So this is like for our audience right now. They're mostly either high school or just got out of high school, young people, and they're thinking, should I be a professional programmer? And if they say yes, I want to be a professional programmer, what advice would you give them now that they have not yet begun that career? What should they be doing now, and what advice would you give them to prepare themselves to become a professional programmer?
I'd say just go to code.org or codeacademy.com and just try it. They have puzzles and it'll show you a little bit about what it means to think like a programmer. So see if you like it. You can find out today if software development is for you. There's no barrier to entry. Like all the tools are free, and the things that aren't free probably aren't worth the money. So yeah, just try it. Go to code.org or codeacademy.com, see if it's for you. And if you like it, well, just keep doing it. And like, don't stress about what programming language to take or anything. You can always learn another. they're all the same. So
It sounds like JC, and I happen to share the same sentiment. Getting started as a professional programmer does not mean enrolling in a BSIT or BS Computer Science
no.
degree program. That's not necessarily the way to start, although you can certainly do that. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that try it out. First of all,
Yeah.
determine whether it's something that you enjoy doing. Is it something that you like to do? And you can go to, as you said, code.org or Code Academy and try out the puzzle. They're free. Try out the puzzles there. See if you enjoyed the challenge of solving those puzzles. And if you like it, keep doing it. As JC said,
Yeah.
just keep doing it. Okay. Well, thank you very much, JC. Thanks for sharing a bit of yourself and what you do. I'm really proud of my son because basically he's really the only one who's totally followed in my footsteps, become a programmer. And it's been fun seeing him doing that profession. And I could be equally proud of any of you that decide to take this on as a career path for yourself. So thank you very much for listening. As I said, JC will be joining the panel right after this, so you can ask him questions then. In the meantime, thank you for your attention and have a nice day. Goodbye.
All right, a father and son programmers. Thank you very much, Mr. Joey and JC Garango, for that very interesting talk. All right. And thank you also for answering some of the questions in our chat box. All right. To manage the time, so our speakers will try their best to answer your questions by replying to the chat box. But kung di man nila masagot, JC is also part of the panel discussion later, so he can address some of the questions sa discussion. All right. Okay, so as mentioned, like yesterday, we want this seminar to be interactive and engaging. So please do share your questions to our speakers about their presentations, their talks, your thoughts, and even messages of support to them. Please go ahead, send them in. So even shout outs or greetings to your colleagues, teachers, professors, go ahead. I-greet namin sila for you guys. So also, we'd love to see your posts on social media, especially sa Twitter. So kung magpo-post man kayo, please use the hashtag Y4IT2021. All right, guys. So napansin ko ngayong pandemic, no, mas nauso ngayon ang video games. Tama ba? Sino ba dito ang mga naglalaro ngayon ng online games or video games? Ayan. Alright. Ayan si John, si Jewel Jade, si Irina, si Paul, hi, June Matino, Kyle Fernando, Jamil, si Janine, naglalaro sila. Ayan, si Rick. Hello, Jobert. Naglalaro din si Jobert Laberte, Joshua Lakap. Ayan, ang dami talagang gamers dito sa atin. So, for sure, I'm so sure marami naglalaro dito ng Mobile Legends. Sino familiar sa Mobile Legends? Wild Rift, Call of Duty, League of Legends, Dota 2, and Valorant. At saka marami pang iba, right? Okay, sige. Gusto ko makita sino dito ang naglalaro ng Mobile Legends. Magbigay naman kayo ng smiling emoji. Yes, Genshin Impact. Yeah, naglalaro yung brother ko noon. Si Russell, si Jexter, si Joy, si Mary. They're all playing Mobile Legends. Alright, okay. How about naman ng mga naglalaro ng Wild Rift? Bigbigay naman kayo ng thumbs up dyan. Wild Rift. Si Sean, si Paul, Angelica, John, si Angelo, si Nars. Hi, Jerome. Nag-stop na raw siya mag-play. Si John Daniel. Okay, you're all playing Wild Rift. Okay. How about yung COD, Call of Duty? Sino naglalaro ng Call of Duty? Ayan, si Vincent, si John Gray, si Orange, Vince, si John. Okay, send kayo ng heart react for COD. Heart react si Justin, si Paul, si Patrick, si Joshua. Hello, yan, naglalaro ng COD. Alright, and lastly, mag-share naman kayo ng inyong Not lastly, second to the last. How about Dota? Sino mga naglalaro ng Dota? Winking smile naman sa mga naglalaro ng Dota. Si Ace, si Herman, si Junirex. Okay, wow, you love Dota. Okay, Dino, Case, alright. Last na game natin ay Valorant. Sinong familiar at naglalaro sa Valorant? Pahingi naman ng laugh react. Ayun, si Paul, si Joshua, si Peter, hi Eden, Rafi, Christine, naglalaro ng Valorant. Okay. Alright, so yes, Adrian, Valorant number 1. Alright, number one, ang Valorant. Alright, okay. So, you might be wondering bakit ako nagtatanong about the games, no? Online games na nilalaro ngayon because our next speaker is the chairman